Hello everyone, let's continue our discussion on strategic management. So please remember that I'm using the book of Fred R. David. So this is our text, Strategic Management by Fred R. David. Okay, so last time we already discussed the first process of your strategic management model. So we're done with development of your VMO or the vision mission statements. We also discussed your external and internal audit, or otherwise known as your environmental scanning. So the next process in your strategic management model would be establishing long-term objectives. Okay, so when we speak of your long-term objectives, basically these represent the results expected from pursuing certain strategies rather. Okay, strategies represent the action to be taken to accomplish long-term objectives. If you say long-term objectives, usually okay, the time frame would be from 2 to 5 years. So objectives, of course, should be quantitative, it should be measurable, it should be realistic, understandable, it should also be what? Challenging. It should be hierarchical. When you say hierarchical, okay, you have to start your objectives from the most important to perhaps the least important. Okay, obtainable, your objectives should be obtainable, congruent among organization or organizational unit. All right, and then each objective should also be associated with a timeline. Okay, why are objectives important? Basically, they provide direction. What else? They also allow synergy. It also aids, or they aid in the evaluation or maybe establishing priorities. They also help reduce uncertainties and minimize conflict. Okay, so objectives serve as standards by which individuals or maybe groups or departments or maybe divisions or maybe the entire organizations can be evaluated. So there. Okay. Now, in your long-term objectives, okay, it is here where you are going to identify strategies that you will use in the organization. So let's take a look at the different types of strategies. So we have here first the integration strategies. So integration strategies would include your forward integration, backward integration, and horizontal integrations or integration. These are sometimes collectively referred to as vertical integration strategies. So vertical integration strategies allow a firm to gain control over distributors, suppliers, or maybe competitors. So first is your forward integration. So forward integration meaning to say you gain ownership or you increase control over distributors or retailers. So here is an example. In 2009 example, Pepsi company or PepsiCo launched a hostile takeover of Pepsi Bottling Group after its 4.2 billion offer was rejected. So they gained ownership over the distributor or retailers. When you say forward integration, an example for this is that you are a manufacturer, but at the same time you gain control, okay, over retailing your product or distributing your product. That is forward integration. Okay? We also have here your backward integration. So in your backward integration, you seek ownership or increase control of a firm's supplier or suppliers. So example is a Chinese car maker, Geely Automobile Holding purchased Australian car parts maker Drivetrain Systems International. So in here, it's like when you say backward integration, you are a distributor or you are a retailer, but at the same time, you gain control over the manufacturing or maybe over the manufacturing of a product. So you are a distributor, but at the same time, you have ownership of manufacturing that product, or how will I say this? For example, in Baguio, we have here your Good Taste. So Good Taste is an example of a retail store. Okay, it's a restaurant. So a restaurant is a type of a retail store. So instead of Good Taste buying their chicken from the suppliers, what they raise their own chicken. So they have, that is an example of your backward integration. So instead of buying maybe vegetables from the vendors or maybe from the producers, okay, they plant their own vegetable. They have their own garden to get their supplies. So that is an example of backward integration. Okay, there you go. We also have here horizontal integration. So in your horizontal integration, you seek ownership, okay, or you increase control over your competitors. Okay, so it's maybe through hostile takeover perhaps, or maybe, okay, merger. So that is an example of your horizontal integration. So an example here, Pfizer acquires Wyeth. Okay, so these are both huge drug companies, but Pfizer, okay, acquired Wyeth. So this is an example of your horizontal integration. All right. The next strategy is your intensive strategies. So what we mentioned earlier are integration strategies. Okay. So we have your backward integration, forward integration, and of course your horizontal integration. Next is your intensive strategies. So intensive strategies include market penetration, market development, and product development. So sometimes referred to as intensive strategies. Why? Because they require intensive efforts in a firm's competitive position with existing products, okay, to improve. All right, so first we have your market penetration. So market penetration, increased market share for present product or services in present markets through greater marketing effort. Okay, so what is market penetration? You increase your market share. What is market share? The number of customers, okay, who avail your product. So you increase your customers or your market share for your present product or service present in the market. Okay, how? Through greater marketing efforts. So an example here is done by Coca-Cola. They increase their market share with their marketing effort through advertisement, diba? Coke spending millions on its slogan, Open Happiness. Okay, increase their market share. Next is market development. So what is market development? In here, you introduce or you present products or services into new geographic area. Okay, so you introduce your present products. Okay, you introduce your existing products or services into new geographic area. Okay, an example here is that Time Warner purchased 31% of Central European Media Enterprises Limited in order to expand into Romania, Czech Republic, Ukraine, and Bulgaria. Okay, so that is market development, new geographic area. So you introduce your present products, or you introduce and present your existing products or services into new geographic area. So that is your market development. Next is product development. So in here naman, you seek to increase your sales. How? By improving your present products or services. Or maybe you try now to develop new products. Okay? So you increase your sales by improving present products or services, or maybe you develop new products. An example is that, okay, News Corp's book, publisher HarperCollins began producing audio books. Okay, it's not just books for reading, but it's also books, okay, for listening. Okay, books for download, such as Jeff Jarvis's What Would Google Do? Okay, moving on. We also have another type of strategy. We have your diversification strategies. Okay, so there are two general types of diversification strategies: related and unrelated. So businesses are said to be related when their value chains possess competitively valuable cross-business strategic fits. Businesses are said to be unrelated when their value chains are so dissimilar that no competitively valuable cross-business relationships exist. Okay. So most companies basically favor diversification strategies in order to capitalize on synergies like transferring competitively valuable expertise, technological know-how, or other capabilities from one business to another, or maybe combining the related activities of separate businesses into single operation to achieve lower costs, or perhaps exploiting common use of well-known brand name. Okay, so let's take a look at your related diversification. When you speak of your related diversification, basically you're adding new, okay, but related products or services. Related diversification. Okay, so an example here is your Sprint Nextel Corp. They diversified from cell phone business to they diversified from cell phone business by partnering with Garmin Limited to deliver wireless internet services into GPS machines. So these businesses or these products or services are actually related. Okay. That's why it's called related diversification. On the other hand, when we speak of your unrelated diversification, basically you add new or unrelated products or services. Okay. For example, Cisco Systems Incorporation or Incorporated entered the camcorder business by acquiring Pure Digital Technology. So Cisco Systems, okay, they added a new product that is not related to their existing services or products. Okay, all right. Another strategy is the so-called defensive strategies. So in addition to your integrative, intensive, and diversification strategies, organizations also could pursue retrenchment, divestiture, or maybe liquidation. So what is retrenchment? Basically, when you say retrenchment, you are regrouping through cost and asset reduction to reverse declining sales and profit. So again, retrenchment, regrouping through cost and asset reduction to reverse declining sales and profit. So an example here, okay, the world's largest steel maker, ArcelorMittal shut down half of its plants and laid off thousands of employees even amid worker protests worldwide. So they regroup, they reduce their employees, the number of their employees. They even shut down half of their plants. Why? Because they want to reverse their declining sales or maybe profit, even though there are a lot of workers who actually protest worldwide. There you go. All right, so we also have here divestiture. So in here, you sell a division or part of your organization. So divestiture is usually used for used by the company to raise capital, for further strategic acquisition or maybe investment. So divestiture can be part of an overall retrenchment strategy to get rid of an organization of businesses that are unprofitable, that require too much capital or that do not fit well with the firm's other activities. So an example here is that British airport firm divested their 3 UK airports. Another example is that in 2009, to raise cash, Motorola divested its good technology mobile email division, to Visto Corporation. So what was the result? Both Good Technology and Visto Corp lagged behind market leader Research in Motion, a limited maker of BlackBerry devices. So Motorola has fallen from being the number 2 maker of cell phones to number 5. Next is liquidation. So basically when we speak of liquidation, you sell all the company's assets in parts for their tangible worth in exchange of cash. So an example here is that Michigan newspaper such as the Ann Arbor News, Detroit Free Press and Detroit News liquidated their hard copy operations. Why? Perhaps it's no longer profitable. Because when we speak of news nowadays, they can access through the internet. So maybe majority of people do not already read newspapers. There you go. All right. So we also have here your Michael Porter's 5 generic strategies. So we already discussed your Michael Porter's 5 forces. So we also have here your generic strategies. So according to Porter, strategies allow organizations to gain competitive advantage from 3 different bases. So we have your cost leadership, cost differentiation, and focus. Okay, Porter calls these bases as generic strategies. Okay, so these are the 5 generic strategies. We have the type 1, that's cost leadership, okay, for low cost. Type 2, okay, cost leadership for best value. Type 3, that is differentiation. Type 4, focus for low cost. And type 5, focus on best value. So basically, type 1 is a low-cost strategy that offers products or services to a wide range of customers at the lowest price available on the market. Type 2 is a best value strategy that offers products or services to a wide range of customers at the best price value available on the market. The best value strategy aims to offer customers a range of products or services at the lowest price available compared to a rival's product with similar attributes. So both type 1 and type 2 strategies target a large market. Okay, for Porter's type 3, generic strategy is differentiation, a strategy aimed at producing products and services considered unique, industry-wide, and directed at consumers who are relatively price insensitive, meaning to say they are not so focused with the price. They do not mind if the price is expensive, okay? As long as the product that they buy is unique. Focus, on the other hand, means producing products and services that fulfill the need of small group of customers. In other words, they call it niche customers, a small group of customers. 2 alternative types of focus strategies are type 4, that is for low cost, focused on low cost, and type 5, that focuses on the best value. Okay. All right, now let's discuss first your type 1 and 2. So in here, a primary reason for pursuing forward, backward, and horizontal integration strategies is, of course, to gain low cost or best value cost leadership benefits. But cost leadership generally must be pursued in conjunction with differentiation. So in order for your cost leadership strategy to be successful, okay, it's evidenced by high efficiency, low overhead, limited perks, intolerance of waste, intensive screening of budget requests, wide spans of control, reward linked to cost containment, and broad employee participation in cost control effort. Okay, so companies who actually employ type 1 or maybe type 2 must achieve their competitive advantage in ways that are difficult, of course, for competitors to copy or match. So if rivals find it relatively easy or inexpensive to imitate the leader's cost leadership method, okay, the leader's advantage will not last long enough to yield a valuable edge in the market. So they have to be unique. Okay. An example, by the way, of companies who are well known for their low-cost leadership strategies are McDonald's, okay, and Walmart. Okay. Next is your differentiation strategies, or type 3. So a successful differentiation strategy allows a firm to charge a higher price for its product and gain customer loyalty because consumers may become strongly attached to the differentiation features. There could be special feature that would differentiate the product from the other competitors or from the competitors. This may include superior service, spare parts availability, engineering design, product performance, useful life, gas mileage for cars, or maybe the ease of use. Okay. All right. And then finally, we have the focus strategy. So focus strategies are most effective when consumers have distinct preference or requirement and when rival firms are not attempting to specialize in the same target segment. Okay, so a successful focus strategy depends on an industry segment that is of sufficient size, has good potential growth, and is not crucial to the success of other major competitors. So strategies such as market penetration and market development offer substantial focusing advantages. Okay. So focus strategy, like for example, maybe restaurants who offer what? Vegetarian food. They are focused on certain niche, meaning to say a small group of customers who are vegetarian. Diba? That is an example. Okay. So we're done with the different strategies. Let's now continue with the next process of your strategic management model. So in here, okay, after we establish the long-term objectives, we have now to generate, evaluate, and select strategies. Okay. So in your strategy formulation analytical framework, stage 1 of the formulation framework would consist of your EFE matrix, IFE, and competitive profile matrix. Okay, this is also called the input stage. So stage 1 basically summarizes the basic input information needed to formulate strategies. Stage 2, on the other hand, is called the matching stage. It focuses, okay, in generating feasible alternative strategies by aligning key internal and external factors. Okay, so stage 2 technique include strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats, or in other words, your SWOT matrix, the strategic position and action evaluation, or your SPACE, okay, matrix, and then the Boston Consulting Group, that is your BCG matrix, and internal external or IE matrix, and finally, of course, we have your grand strategy matrix. On the other hand, stage 3, also known as your decision stage, involves a single technique, okay, identified in stage 2. So this is your QSPM, or your Quantitative Strategic Planning Matrix. So a QSPM reveals the relative attractiveness of alternative strategies and thus provides objective basis for selecting a specific strategy. All right, now let's talk about the first stage. So the information in the input stage, the information derived from your EFE or IFE and CPM provide basic input information for matching the decision stage matrices. So the input tools require strategists to quantify subjectively during the early stage of the strategy formulation. Okay. So basically making small decisions in the input matrices regarding the relative importance of external and internal factors would allow strategists to more effectively generate and evaluate alternative strategies. So good intuitive judgment is always needed in determining appropriate weights and, of course, ratings, okay, in your stage 1 or your input stage. In your matching stage, okay, this is the strategy formulation framework, which consists of 5 techniques. So we have your SWOT, SPACE, BCG, IE, and Grand Strategy Matrix. Okay, so these tools rely upon the information derived from the input stage to match external opportunities and threats with internal strengths and weaknesses. So matching external and internal critical success factor, okay, or factors would be the key to effectively generate feasible alternative strategies. Okay, for example, a firm with excess working capital, okay, an internal strength, could take advantage of the cell phone industry's 20% annual growth rate, okay, in this example. This is the external opportunity. How? By acquiring a cell phone incorporation. There you go, as shown here, the result strategy. Yan. A firm of a cell phone industry, of course. So this example portrays a simple one-to-one matching. In most situations, external and internal relationships are more complex, and the matching requires multiple alignments for each strategy generated. So the basic concept of matching is illustrated in this table. Okay, now let's first discuss the first matching strategy. That is your SWOT matrix, or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats matrix. So this is actually an important tool that helps managers develop 4 types of strategies. That is your SO, or strengths and opportunities strategies. We also have your WO, weaknesses and opportunities strategies. We also have your ST, strengths and threats strategies, and your WT, weaknesses and threats strategies. Okay. So it says here that an important matching tool, your SWOT, is an important matching tool that helps managers develop 4 types of strategies, as we mentioned earlier. Diba? Okay. So there you go. These are some examples of potential resource strengths. So we have powerful strategy, strong financial condition, strong brand name, brand image, reputation, okay, widely recognized market leader, okay, etc. Strong advertising, product innovation skill, okay, etc. These are examples of strengths. And then we also have potential weaknesses, okay. Remember, your strengths and weaknesses are within the company, okay, within the industry, within the firm rather. So no clear strategic direction could be a weakness. Obsolete facilities. What else? Higher overall costs than rivals. Okay, within. Internal operating problems, weak marketing skills, okay, etc. And then potential opportunities. Okay, potential opportunities and potential threats are external, outside the company. So potential opportunities of a company could be serving additional customer groups, or maybe extending to new geographic areas, or maybe expanding your product line, transferring skills to new products, vertical integration, okay, acquisition of rivals, etc. Potential threat, of course, number one could be new competitors, maybe a loss of sales to substitutes, slow growing market growth there, costly new regulations, or maybe demographic changes there. Okay, so these are examples. All right, now let's discuss your SWOT matrix. So we have the first strategy here, your SO strategies, your strengths and opportunities strategies. So SO strategies use a firm's internal strengths to take advantage of external opportunities. This is also known as your SWOT matching. So you match your strength with your opportunities, okay, so that you would take your internal strength would help you take advantage of your external opportunities. So all managers would like their organizations to be in a position in which internal strengths can be used to take advantage of external trends or events. Okay. Organizations generally would pursue WO or ST or WT strategies to get into a situation in which they can apply SO strategies. So when a firm has major weakness, it will strive to overcome them and make them strengths. When an organization faces major threats, it would seek to avoid, okay, these threats and concentrate on opportunities. All right. We also have here your WO strategies, or your weakness or internal weaknesses matched with external opportunities. So the aim is to improve internal weaknesses, okay, by taking advantage of external opportunities. Sometimes key external opportunities exist, but a firm has internal weaknesses that prevent it from exploiting those opportunities. So, for example, there may be a high demand for electric devices to control the amount of to control the amount and timing of fuel injection in automobile engines. So that is an opportunity. But certain part manufacturers may lack technology required for producing these devices. So that could be a weakness. So one possible WO strategy would be to acquire this technology by forming a joint venture with firm having competency in this area. So an alternative WO strategy would be to hire or maybe train people with the required technical capabilities. So that is an example. Okay, next is your ST strategies, your strengths and threats. You match your internal strengths, okay, to avoid or reduce the impact of external threats. So this does not mean that a strong organization should always meet threats in the external environment heads on. So an example of ST strategy occurred when Texas Instrument used an excellent legal department, that is their strength, okay, to collect nearly $700 million in damages and royalties from 9 Japanese and Korean firms that infringed on patents for semiconductor memory chips. Okay, that is a threat, diba? Rival firms that copy ideas, innovations, and patented products are major threats in many industries. So basically, this is still a major problem, okay, for U.S. firms selling products in China. Okay. All right. So we also have here your WT strategies, or you have to, okay, reduce your internal weaknesses to avoid external threats. So WT strategies are defensive tactics directed at reducing internal weakness and avoiding external threats. So an organization faced with numerous external threats and internal weaknesses may indeed be in precarious position. So in fact, such a firm may have to fight for its survival, maybe merge, retrench, declare bankruptcy, or choose liquidation. Okay. Okay. All right. So there are 8 steps involved in constructing a SWOT matrix. So a SWOT matrix is composed of 9 cells. Actually here, there, it's composed of 9 cells. Okay. As shown, there are 4 key factor cells, 4 strategy cells, and 1 cell that is always left blank. So the upper left cell. So the 4 strategy cells would be labeled as SO, WO, ST, and WT. These are developed after completing the 4 key factor cells labeled as S, W, O, and T. So these are, okay, the 8 steps involved in constructing a SWOT matrix. So first, you have to list firm's key external opportunities, key external threats, internal threats, and internal weaknesses. Next is you match internal strengths with an external opportunities and record the resultant SO strategies in the appropriate cell. Next is to match internal weaknesses with external opportunities and record the resultant WO strategies. And then match internal strengths and external threats. Okay, and then of course record it in the ST strategies. Match internal weaknesses with external threats and record in the WT strategies. Okay, so there, as shown earlier. Okay, so note that both the internal or external factors and the SO, ST, WO, and WT strategies, okay, are stated in quantitative terms as much as possible sana. Okay, quantitative terms to the extent possible. So this is very important. So regarding the second SO in number 2, So you can see the SO in number 2 and ST in number 1 strategies. If the analyst would just say add new repair, or maybe service person, the reader might think that 20 new repair or service persons are needed when actually only 2 are needed. So always be specific to the extent possible in stating factors and strategies. So it is also important to include the S1 and O2, okay, type notation after each strategy in SWOT matrix. So this notation reveals the rationale for each alternative strategy. So strategies do not rise out of the blue. Okay, note that in this figure, okay, how this notation reveals the internal or external factors that were matched to formulate, okay, desirable strategies. For example, note that this retail computer store, okay, business need to purchase land to build a new store because a new highway, okay, will make its location less desirable. Okay, so this is your so-called SWOT matching, sorry. So in here, for example, S4, strength 4, there, strength 4. In-store promotion, there is 20% increase in sales. That is your strength. It's matched with opportunities 3. Okay, vehicle traffic passing store up to 12%. So what is a strategy? So they will add 4 new in-store promotions monthly. Okay, another example. Okay, weakness 2. Okay, location of store hurt by new highway 34. Okay, and opportunity, but they try to mitigate their weakness with the opportunity. There is an opportunity rival computer store opening in 1 mile. So what is their strategy? They will purchase the land to build a new store. So that is a strategy. Okay, there. All right, moving on. So this is your so-called SWOT matching. Okay, so what is the relevance of your SWOT matching strategy? So for the strength, you apply and then sustain. For threat, you have to avert the threat. For weaknesses, okay, it's important to overcome your weaknesses. Okay, and try to discover your external opportunities. All right, so there. In your SWOT analysis, okay, your internal strength and external opportunities strategies, you try now to see which of the company's strengths can be used to maximize opportunities that you identify. Okay, for the ST strategies, so how can you use the company's strengths to minimize the threats you identify? For your WO strategies, okay, what action or actions can you take to minimize the company's weaknesses using the opportunities you identify? And then for weakness or threats strategies, you can minimize the company's weaknesses to avoid the threats that you identified. Okay? All right, moving on. Let's proceed now to your SPACE matrix or your strategic position action evaluation. So this is another important factor in stage 2. So it is a 4-quadrant framework, indicates whether, okay, aggressive, conservative, defensive, or competitive strategies are most appropriate for a given organization. All right, so this is your uh, space matrix. So the axis, okay, so axis because it has more than one axis. So the axis of the space matrix represent two internal dimensions. So two internal dimension, that is your FP or the financial position, and competitive position. So this one here is your internal dimension. Okay, so FP and CP. And then two external dimension, your SP, okay, SP and IP. This one, IP. Okay, these factors are perhaps the most uh, important determinants of an organization's overall strategic position, depending on the type of organization. Okay, so factors that were included in your EFE and IFE should be considered in developing your space matrix. Okay. All right. So, for example, return on investment, okay, leverage, liquidity, working capital are commonly considered to be determining factor of your organization's financial strength. But you have to remember whatever factors that you included in your IFE or EFE, you have to consider also in your space matrix, okay? Like the SWOT matrix, the space matrix should be tailored on a particular organization being studied and based on factual, remember ha, factual information as possible. Okay, so there you go. Remember your FP or financial position and your competitive position are your two internal dimensions. Your IP and SP are external dimension. Okay, so there you go. All right, so there are steps required to develop a space matrix. So what are these? So number one, you have to select a set of variables to define your financial position, competitive position, stability position, and industry position. So there, select the variables as seen here. And then number two, you have to assign a numerical value ranging from positive 1 as the worst to positive 7 as the best to each of the variables that make up your FP, remember, and IP. FP is your financial position and your industry position, okay? Assign numerical value ranging from negative 1 as the best to negative 7 as the worst to each of the variable or variables that make up your SP, that is your stability position, and your CP, that is your competitive position. On the FP and CP axis, make comparison to competitors. Remember, so you have to compare it with your competitors. In your IP and SP, comparison with industries. Okay, so there you go. You have to assign value here. FP and IP. What did we say about it? Okay. 1 as positive 1 as the worst and 7 as the best, positive 7. In your SP and CP, okay, sorry, negative 1 as the best and then negative 7 as the worst. Okay, again, FP and CP axis, you compare with competitors. In IP and SP, you compare it with other industries. Okay? All right. Next step is that compute an average score for FP, CP, IP, and SP by summing the values given to the variables of each dimension and then dividing by the number of variables included in respective dimension. So, okay, there. So, you compute. Okay, the average of your FP, CP, IP. I think we have it here. There you go. You compute. Okay, the FP, IP, SP, and then CP. And then plot the average score for FP, IP, SP, and CP on the appropriate axis on the space matrix. I will show you later on. And then add the two scores on the x-axis and plot the resultant point on x, and then add two scores in the y-axis and plot the resultant on point on y. Plot the intersection of the new xy point. And then perhaps you can draw a directional vector from the origin of the space matrix through intersection point. This vector reveals the type strategies recommended for the organization, whether it's aggressive, competitive, defensive, or maybe conservative. Okay, so there. Okay, so after adding, okay, you get the average. For example, in your SP, okay, you get the average of your SP. This is your SP. So you add, okay, and then you get the average. You divide it by 3 because there are 3 factors present here. So that is the average of your SP. Similarly with the other factors. So your x-axis is your CP and IP. So after determining the average of your CP, that is 3, negative 3, okay, you add it with the average of your IP, that is positive 3.3, okay, to determine your x-axis. Similarly, to determine your y-axis, okay, you get the average of your SP, okay, that is negative 4.33, and then you add it with the result of your FP, that is positive 2.25. Okay, there you go. And then after that, you plot. Okay, your CP and IP is 3.3. Let's assume that it's here, 3.3. And your SP and FP is negative 2.8. There you go, 2.8. Okay, so this is where they intersected. So, okay, based on the space matrix, so the the strategy that they have to pursue is a competitive strategy. It could be backward integration, forward, horizontal, or maybe market penetration, okay, market development, or perhaps product development. Okay, there you go. All right, so that ends our lecture for now. I will see you on my next lecture, and that is your BCG. Okay,